Hello everyone, we're back, ready for qualifying. Oh, I messed it up. Oh, wow. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna wait like 10 seconds and I'm just gonna start again. Hello everyone, we're back and we're ready for practice 2 in Monte Carlo. The Monaco Grand Prix weekend is on your screen right now with the live timings. We're about to get going for the session. Who will be going fastest? We shall find out in a matter of moments. And in the meantime, we're going to get a poll on the screen if we can. I'm going to try and set one up. If I can do that, if I have the skill. Do I have the skill? I have the skill. And no, I don't have the skill. There we go, that's better. There you go. Should be better. And then we wait for the session to start. Well, it's already started. We're just waiting for a few cars to come out on track. We've got a couple already. That is all good to see. Alright. We'll give it a second. And then we'll be ready. Just syncing things up with the live stream. Let's get some commentary going. We had a pretty decent session earlier on. Pretty enjoyable to watch as well. With a couple of moments to talk about from a few drivers. Charles Leclerc, the home hero, but also Lance Stroll, who had a bit of an issue. So, earlier on in FP1, what did we see? Well, McLaren were quick. They were very quick, but they didn't complete a lap to go quickest. That went to Charles Leclerc. But Charles Leclerc had a little bit more of an eventful session than just going fastest. They had an off at turn 5 in Mirabeau, and immediately after they left the runoff area and then went to the hairpin, they got blocked by Lance Stroll, who was trying to move out the way from Kimi Antonelli. Lance Stroll then went back to the racing line. That's when Charles Leclerc went into the back of the Aston Martin. and the Aston did struggle because they ended up having gearbox damage. Charles Leclerc got away with just the front wing. They went into the pit lane, got it replaced, went fastest, still complained about a few other things with the car later on into the session. They set an 11.964, absolutely rapid in the end. The red flag was actually called after that incident, just the first couple of minutes of the session it was. So we had a couple of minutes out as the stewards cleared it. So after that, that was Lance Stroll, of course, involved as well. They didn't rejoin the session because of a gearbox change. Big problems there for Lance Stroll because they only got about 3 or 4 laps in the session. And they're going to miss out on some really important running. There were a lot of laps done in the session, FP1 session, of course. We had a mix of tyres. Towards the end, pretty much everybody was on that soft tyre. The C6, the same soft tyre that we had in Imola. And the teams are getting a little bit more used to it, running this brand new C6 tyre. Very interesting to see. A lot more grippy, a lot more stable than what we saw last time around in Imola. In Imola, we saw the soft tyre sorry for that. In Imola, we saw the soft tyre be pretty complicated for many drivers. That's where we saw Aston Martin get both of their cars into Q3, setting both their Q2 and Q3 final lap times on that yellow wall tyre because of that soft tyre being so unpredictable. Now, the thing is, the teams have had a bit more time to get to grips with what's going on, no pun intended there. But also we've got a very different circuit. We've got a slow speed circuit where that grip is going to be really useful. So I think it was just maybe the wrong tyre allocation that we really saw last weekend in Imola. We saw, we now see a great tyre allocation here in Monaco. It was a couple of cars having to avoid riding some curbs when they were on the medium tyre compared to when they're on the soft tyre, where they could really attack them aggressively and get that grip despite being on the slippery surface. Some cars didn't have the ability to ride the curbs as much as others. That was the Mercedes cars. They had a little bit of an issue where they had to kind of stay away from a few curbs, unfortunately. Currently 5 minutes into the session, we've got Max Verstappen topping the times, Oscar Piastri in P2, and it's Lando Norris in P3. Alex Albon with a brilliant session in FP1 going P4 has just been beaten to it by Alonso and then Tsunoda to P4. 6, almost 7 tenths away from their teammates' fastest lap time so far. And then Albon now P6, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Sainz in P10, Behrman and Ocon in P11 and 13 with Antonelli in the middle. The Haas drivers need to do something about their pace earlier on. We've just had Lance Stroll jump into P13 between Antonelli and Behrman, and then we've seen Hamilton go to P4. Leclerc goes P3 as they are all trying to chase down Max Verstappen's lap time that began the session. It's Sainz and Behrman, the only ones on the soft tyres. We've got a few hards, but mostly mediums right now. Everyone is out on track right now, which is pretty hectic. We saw some blocking, some traffic issues earlier on. Now we're going to get a yellow flag. Where's that on track? Red flag. Is that Hajar having an issue? So I think they've locked off a wheel possibly. Okay, so Hajar is letting everybody go at the moment, and then he's hoping to try and drive the car back as the red flag is currently out. We're just going to try and get some more information on what's just happened to it. So Hajar, last to come out on the session. And has immediately stacked it into the wall without a single lap, a single timed lap on the board. Session is red flagged. Damage is all on the rear left, so he's hit the wall either coming in or out of the chicane. It's really easy to get that wheel hooked over when you're trying to push the limit. That must be what they've just done. So yeah, a fair bit of contacts. The session will stop for a few minutes. Pretty much a repeat of what we had in FP1. We saw the session be stopped within the first few minutes because of the crash between Charles Leclerc and Lance Stroll. It actually took a while for us to get that red flag. We saw a few minutes pass by, or a minute pass by or so. This time it's been a little bit more instantaneous. Yeah, frustrating there, but it is what it is. Hajar might be able to get back out on track here. He might be able to get back on track. Not impossible. Track has been cleared already. So we're looking to possibly go again very soon. Okay, so looks like Hajar might have a chance to get back into this session. It's not impossible. So he made it back to the pit lane after letting many cars go through. Didn't want to block anyone. But we'll see them continue a little bit later on. So, whilst we have the first red flag of the session and we wait to get going again, we want that confirmation from race control. I'm looking a little bit further down the order from the notes that I made from FP1. Hamilton launched their car over the curbs at the swimming pool chicane, getting a lot of air. It was spectacular. If you haven't seen it already, go and search it up. Lewis Hamilton found one hell of a ramp. Looking more like a mountain bike or a skateboard, or even a quad bike because it's got four wheels, like than a car. A bit more of a unicorn, Ken Block style thing. Yeah. Anyway, it was pretty impressive how much air they got. They went back to the pit lane and they still continued throughout the session. We saw Sainz locking up into the first corner using the runoff on the soft tyre, so I think they needed to get a new set of tyres. Lando Norris did exactly the same thing, but they're on the medium tyre and the lockup wasn't that bad, so they could continue. Antonelli touched the wall later on in the session, and Albon, for a period, was travelling slowly, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on. They did go P4 in the end, so they had a pretty strong session. and I don't think they'll be complaining about things too much. They should all be good. After the crash from Isaac Hadjar, I think the Racing Bull crew are not too disappointed that they haven't brought a severe upgrade package here in Monaco. Of course, pretty much every team has brought a Monaco spec rear wing, and they've made some adjustments for the front suspension to give themselves some extra clearance on the steering lock to help them at the Monaco hairpin. But other than that, they're all good to go. We should be getting the green flag very, very shortly, just waiting for a few cars to leave the pit lane, and there is the Mercedes already on their way out. So here we go. It's actually Hulkenberg, not the Mercedes. I completely misread the colour on the screen there. Had a little tiny mini map, absolutely minute, but we're all good now. Alright, we're once again ready to go. 46 minutes on the clock. Isaac Hadjar could be seen later on in the session after they've just had an off earlier on. I think Verstappen's complaining about the steering, if I heard that right. Not entirely sure, I may have got it just wrong. Who is looking to go fastest this weekend? So far, 3 votes, 1 for McLaren, 2 for Ferrari. That's not a bad shout, and when we say Ferrari, do we mean Ferrari or do we mean Charles Leclerc around Monaco? I mean, Hamilton wasn't looking slow and they were always very good. Of course, they have stated that they're better in race pace than they are in qualifying as they've got older. But Leclerc is just the king around this circuit, you can't deny it. Everyone out on track except from Lawson, Behrman and of course Hadjar. So it is getting pretty busy right now. And we're going to see some good running, good laps, good data. Maybe some more drama even as the session continues. It's all a matter of time, I'm sure. What can we see from Williams, as they had, of course, some brilliant pace in Imola. Now they've got a high downforce circuit. I don't think they're quite so confident. Historically, the Williams has been quicker in a straight line than it has been in the corners. Also had some tyre issues where it could perform really well in cold temperatures, but not so well in the hotter temperatures. Of course, in Azerbaijan last season, they did really, really well. And of course in 2023 it was the same philosophy of the car. This time the car is a lot better of a race car, all rounded, and it's kind of got to grips, it seems, with the temperature a bit more. But still, what can we see from that Williams? It's a little bit unknown at the moment. We're kind of hoping for something good, but it's a bit difficult to really say. As of now, got Antonelli and Norris following closely on track at the moment. Antonelli for his first race here in Monaco in Formula 1. Lando Norris got P3 here in 2021. Just missed out on the podium last year. So has managed to get to the top, or not to the top, but the top few steps in the past. But still has to work a little bit harder until they do get that glory spot, if they can do so. FP2 last year was topped by an 11.278 from Charles Leclerc. Let's see if they can do that again, and let's see if we can get to that lap time. 11.278 versus a 12.548 on the medium tyre from Oscar Piastri. Hamilton goes P2. And it's Gasly who immediately goes to P3. Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Alonso, Russell, Hulkenberg, Sainz now P10, Tsunoda, Bortoleto, Albon, Lawson, Stroll, Colapinto, Behrman, Antonelli, Ocon and Hadjar with no lap time for the Frenchman at the end. It's Russell now to P2 as many cars are going through and setting lap times. We've got Gasly going quicker again. Purple in the first sector, there's Kimi Antonelli, who's pushing like a madman. Let's see what they can do as they are in the second sector now, into the third and final sector. Into that final corner, that fastest first sector has been beaten by Charles Leclerc by a little margin. There's Antonelli across the line to P2 ahead of George Russell. But it's Charles Leclerc who we will watch on with the sector lines as they reach the next section. Purple now, an 8.36, 18.836, and purple in the middle. There is Leclerc, but it's a yellow. Charles Leclerc goes top. It's Oscar Piastri who's hit the barrier. I think they might be able to get that car moving. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not watching any pictures. I'm just listening to some audio and seeing what you're seeing, where Oscar is stationary, but it does look like that car is moving. The front wing is off and the red flag is out for the second time and the third time this weekend. So, frustrating. So they have hit that wall front on effectively. So Oscar Piastri will be good to go. They've lost the front wing only. Yeah, as I was saying, Oscar Piastri into the wall, but now on their way back to the pit lane, so it should just be a front wing, it's being suggested. They might not need any other changes. Okay, so Charles Leclerc's front wing change earlier on in FP1 that meant they did need that a brand new one, of course. They actually had to spend some time removing it because of the damage. However, it seems to be that McLaren have managed to find a way to pretty much immediately change that front wing. So they should all be good to go. And hopefully, we can get the session started once again as soon as possible. So, once again, I'll say thank you very much everybody for watching. It's been a pleasure so far. We currently have 37 minutes on the clock, with Charles Leclerc topping the times just at the last second before we've got the red flag, or the red flag that we had. Now we are back to clear track, and we will be racing within the next minute. It's a hard tyre for Charles Leclerc setting that fastest lap time. Max Verstappen not happy with the impeding that he's getting from some of the other cars, struggling with the positioning on track. It is Monaco. It's as expected. We saw it in Imola. That's difficult enough to overtake at, and we're going to see it again and again and again. Of course, Red Bull with their rear wing upgrade. They're looking to try and do something good. McLaren ran a little bit of a Monaco wing in Imola, so got some good testing from that wing. And they're going to be pretty dialed in. I'm not entirely sure what Verstappen's going to be able to do when it comes to qualifying. They did go P2 in FP1 though, so they are obviously very, very quick. And that's good news for Red Bull, who are looking to try and add to their tally of victories around this circuit. So I will go to practice 1 timings if I can to see. It was Max Verstappen who was a 10th away from Charles Leclerc, and I think a 10th away from Max Verstappen was Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri was down in P5, so a little bit off the pace there for the championship leader, after I think they've just had a bit of a wall bang with the Saint Devote corner and the barrier. That's why we had a stoppage for a moment. We are now out on track once again and ready to go for some quick laps. Hopefully that's the last red flag of the session, because we've had 2 already today, or sorry, in this session we've had 3 today already. We're probably going to have some more. I'll be honest, it's Monaco. If there's a little bit of a crash, they have to stop the session to get the debris off safely. Otherwise, the marshals put themselves in danger, and we don't want that. "34 minutes on the clock. Charles Leclerc leads the way, half a second ahead of Oscar Piastri, who's going to spend a little bit more time in the pit lane after causing what we have now as the red flag. Antonelli P3, it's Russell in P4. Now we're back on track. It's Hamilton who's P5 after jumping the curb in the swimming pool section earlier on in FP1. They're now trying to make sure that they don't cause any more damage to their floor. It's Gasly to P6. It's Verstappen P7 who's complaining about traffic despite going quicker earlier on. They're still trying to make sure they navigate their way through the track safely throughout the weekend and don't find any damage on their car. It's Lando Norris in P8, Alex Albon in P9, and Fernando Alonso finishing the top 10. Max Verstappen is a 3-time winner around this circuit, winning 2021, winning 2023. I should say, no, not a 3-time winner, a 2-time winner. Winning in 21, winning in 23, had a chance at winning in 22, but there was the crash, of course, that made it pretty difficult. And, of course, had a chance of winning in 2019, but didn't quite have the ability to get past Lewis Hamilton with that masterful defence on a very special weekend, of course. Red Bull, they've had 7 victories around this circuit, looking to make it 8 this weekend. Ideally, of course, for them, it would be with Max Verstappen. They would hope that Yuki Tsunoda would give it a good challenge as well, but Yuki's still trying to get comfortable with that car. finding it pretty difficult. Of course, in qualifying last weekend in Imola, they crashed out in Q1 in the opening stages, started the race in last place, ended up finishing P10. Bit of fortune with a safety car, but ultimately the position is the position, and they managed to make it work. So a point in the end, not really justified for the drive that they showed. They did a very good job. Hopefully Yuki can try and get qualifying under control this time, and then utilise the performance of the car. McLaren are the most successful team around this circuit with 15 wins. Last time winning here in 2008. Now they're going to try and make it 16. Ferrari won last year, and they're going to try and make it 12 victories as they currently stand on 11, with Mercedes on 8 victories themselves. Fernando Alonso goes to P1. It's Hamilton, though, who's going purple, and then goes to the top for the Ferrari car. Leclerc in P3, Russell to P4. We've got a nice old mix-up now. We're on 31 minutes. It's Norris to P5 ahead of Piastri, who's out on track already and good to go. So although I haven't said it, or seen it, sorry, I can confirm that Isaac Hadjar did collide with the wall at turn 10 on entry to the big old hairpin chicane. So they did hook that rear left tyre around it. Very easily done. And that's why they had their moment. But they're still in this session. They're good to go. And they're setting some decent lap times as well. Gasly, I think, just had a little bit of a moment with another car, almost being put in the wall. What I can say for that one is welcome to Monaco. We see both Ferraris into the pit lane already, as they've just set those really quick lap times. It's Leclerc, however, who is already out on track once again. Fernando Alonso setting a pretty decent lap time with half of the session remaining now. They won here in 2004, I believe. 2005, their teammate won it. And I want to say that was Fisichella. And Fernando Alonso has just gone and taken it once more up to the top spot. Purple in that middle sector, fastest of all. On the soft tyre, of course, ahead of Hamilton's medium tyre. Leclerc currently out on track on a fresh soft tyre. So get ready for the pure pace. It's Hulkenberg who's gone P4 on their soft tyre. So Aston Martin definitely really finding it nice with their upgrade package that they had. Lance Stroll's got a little bit of work to do as they missed effectively the entirety of FP1. So can't really be too disappointed with Lance Stroll at the moment. Alonso has had an entire session of running and is looking pretty strong right now. But Charles Leclerc is about to start a lap, and we're looking to see if they can go fastest. Okay, so we've got brush of the barrier, I think, from Esteban Ocon. And I think they had a bit of impeding by another car as well. We saw a red flag infringement that will be investigated after the session from Oliver Behrman. So they're going to be in a spot of bother. Bortoleto to P12. We've seen some more mixing, but we are seeing Charles Leclerc doing 18.5 into Sector 1. Just looking at the comparison there, an 18.8 for Carlos Sainz in that first sector. Sure, Carlos is on 14 lap old medium tyres, the tyre that they have started this session on. But yeah, that's still pretty impressive from Charles Leclerc. 33.9 in that middle sector. Hamilton hasn't had the best lap. It's Charles Leclerc who does go almost half a second ahead of Fernando Alonso, not going purple in that final sector. But Hamilton, despite coming out onto track with the tyres that they need to try and set a good lap, they have gone very, very slow in that first sector. And they really aren't pushing at all. 26 minutes on the clock. "26 minutes to go." Currently the predictions are 50-50 between McLaren and Ferrari to take victory here. What year is it, you say? I don't know. I do not know. Leclerc currently seems to be the stronger of the entire grid at the moment. Hamilton's finally got a bit more of a representative first sector on their hands. A 6th. Anybody further down competing with that? Well, Bortoleto isn't doing too bad relative to Hamilton. Everybody else seems to be slower. But we're trying to see what Hamilton can do in the middle and final sector, although they've backed off immediately, so we won't see their full pace. Of course, Leclerc went purple. So Behrman's just had a bit of a moment on the swimming pool chicane, colliding with the wall as their teammate did a few moments ago. So Haas are really trying to hold on to their pockets right now, otherwise they might end up forking out some payments for some upgrades. And we see Hamilton now complete another lap, but they did of course back off. And across the line there for Charles Leclerc, goes purple once again. Is now just over half a second ahead. That being said, Norris has brought that back a little bit. But still, that is a huge margin. A huge, huge margin. Now, looking at the rest of the order, well, I'll go through the order again. Leclerc, Norris, Alonso, Albon, Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen, Piastri, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, Russell, Behrman, Antonelli, Gasly, Bortoleto, Lawson, Ocon, Hadjar, Stroll, and Colapinto. Colapinto not in this on the track right now, having a difficult time here in Monaco. Of course, their second Grand Prix, their second race for the Alpine team, and it's one of the most, if not the most difficult circuit to do it at, which is really, really tough. You've got to respect it. You just got to hope that they don't crash, and if they don't crash, then I'm sure they can be happy. But they're out on track to try and get some more laps done. Oscar Piastri looking to go quickly. They navigate their way through the traffic. And they come out of the final corner. They're going to get Carlos Sainz just ahead of them for a bit of a tow, possibly. And across the line. They're not going to improve position-wise. Very slow in that final sector. They are very close to the back of Max Verstappen. It's Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz who've set exactly the same lap time. 12.151 between the both drivers. And former teammates, of course, at Toro Rosso. Both Red Bull Academy drivers. Now Verstappen stays with Red Bull for the senior team. Sainz went to McLaren. Went to Renault actually, then to McLaren. And then to Ferrari and now to Williams. Gone all over the place. Hamilton goes to P3, right behind Lando Norris, but still away off Charles Leclerc, just under the half a second margin at least. But yeah, that's a huge gap to have to your teammate. Now, what I want to look at is last year we had an intense race. It was fairly close on track position. But of course, if you're ahead in Monaco, you're ahead in Monaco. It's going to be virtually impossible to overtake another car in front of you. You can't do much about it. And the race just continued from there on. And Charles Leclerc cruised to victory. Still had to think about a lot of things, of course, because it is Monaco. But they didn't have to worry about really defending, because the circuit kind of defends for you. Now, if this is the case of Charles Leclerc and the pace right now, would they have enough to dominate? Would they be able to break a gap from the rest of the field? I don't know. Would they want to risk it? I mean, if you've got so much pace in the car, and then you just bring it back, let all the cars sit behind you, do you want to do that and just not crash the car? I mean, it could be easy to crash the car if you go slow and you don't know the full potential of the car when it's... I'm waffling right now. Anyway, or would you want to try and push to the absolute limit? I mean, yeah, you kind of want to get yourself a bit of a gap, don't you? You want to try and get yourself a bit of a advantage. Russell to P7. Talking of papaya, we've got Oscar Piastri coming back onto the track on a scrub set of soft tyres. It is really McLaren's race to win, surely. I mean, if they're not going to win the Grand Prix, they should be getting P2 and P3. It's just an expectation these days in Formula 1. Easier said than done, of course. Fernando Alonso, very frustrated on the radio, complaining about a few cars missing the chicane at turn 10. So you come through the tunnel section and then you get to turn 10. They're just completely cutting the chicane, and he's finding it very distracting because he's trying to do his lap and then all of a sudden the car ahead just completely goes off. It can be distracting. And when you're trying to be ultra focused and making sure that you don't make any mistakes around a street circuit, let alone it being Monaco, you don't want cars going off the circuit. Maybe they try and move out the way, maybe they try and gain some time so they don't block you. It's still distracting. Very frustrated radio there from Fernando Alonso. Really not happy. Wasn't happy last weekend either, saying that he's one of the most unlucky drivers ever to have lived. But you can't necessarily disagree. You can't fully agree because he is a two-time F1 world champion. But he has had some pretty bad luck in his time. After a brilliant qualifying in Imola, the race just didn't reward him with the safety cars. I think they finished was up P11 there for Fernando Alonso in the end. I'm going to see if I can try and get an idea of where that was. Race result, and it was in fact P11 there for Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll ended up finishing P15. So for a team that qualified pretty well, that's quite frustrating, isn't it? FP2 was topped last weekend by Oscar Piastri. Last year in Monaco, FP2 was topped by Charles Leclerc, followed by Lewis Hamilton, followed by Fernando Alonso himself, and then Max Verstappen with Lando Norris in P5. Leclerc, Norris, Lawson, and Hamilton with Alonso in P5 is the current order. So we see Lawson in this top order instead of Max Verstappen. Other than that, it's exactly the same top 5. Right, so Lawson's complaining about Hamilton again for the second time this weekend. Struggling with the traffic. But Hamilton has just gone purple in the final sector and up to P2. Lots of cars in the pit lane at the moment, not very busy, so it is the time to go out on track right now and get things working. How's Lawson up there? I think they've just pushed the limit, to be honest. I think they've just got really close to the wall. And found every bit of lap time. Currently, a few cars are absolutely loving it. No traffic, although we do have a bit of a cluster of cars, ironically, in a certain part of the circuit, turns 9 and 10-ish. You've got all this room to be using, and they found themselves all close together. Well, a few cars will be on their way back out onto the pit lane, or onto the track, I should say, from the pit lane, I'm sure, very, very soon. 15 minutes on the clock. We've got a mix of, well, we've only got one medium tyre right now out on track. One medium tyre is fitted on Carlos Sainz's car. Everybody else is on the softs. We saw hard tyres earlier on in the session, but there wasn't much running done on that tyre, as, I'll tell you why, this session is closer to the session that we will have tomorrow for qualifying and, of course, for the race. So you get the best data relative to the potential conditions tomorrow. Of course, FP3 is where you're really going to try and get the cars dialed in, so you're probably going to go quicker. But we see the teams try and go for their kind of race / qualifying tyre. They really try and simulate what's going on. And that's why we see this. Oscar Piastri has once again got very, very close, I think, to a barrier. Sliding all over the place. Purple middle sector. Not quite in that final sector. Green in the first. And that's a P3 there for Oscar, who is 3/10 away from Charles Leclerc. Hamilton's lap. I just want to talk about that one really quickly. A tenth away from Charles Leclerc. That's more like it from Lewis Hamilton. We were worried that Hamilton was having a problem. Despite being up there, they were half a second away. They were half a second away from their teammate. And that's not ideal. That's really, really, really not ideal. I can't explain how no ideal that is. But they were still up there. Now they've managed to find some good pace in that car. The same tyre as well. And they've got within a tenth of Charles Leclerc. Are you going to beat Charles Leclerc around Monaco? I don't think so. But if you can get close to them, if something went wrong, you might be able to nab a position off them when it comes to race day. Hamilton has managed to find a brilliant lap there ahead of the McLarens as well. Currently Ferrari in a league of their own. And I will repeat what I said earlier on in FP1. Christian Horner said he thinks the Ferraris will be quick. He knows that they can ride over the curbs quite nicely. He thinks that they'll be very quick. Charles Leclerc stated that we struggle in the low speed section, so we don't have the confidence. Hamilton was optimistic and saying that he hopes things can go well with a few ideas in mind. We've got a mixed understanding of what Ferrari can do here from a few sources. I think we can see what's going on now, and I think we know that Ferrari is quick. Ferrari is very, very quick. And the cars are going to be going pretty quickly, pretty much immediately. They're not going to go too slow at all, because they know that it could be that you get a red flag in a session very easily. So you have to make sure you make the most of your running. And that's why we're seeing so many laps being done. That being said, we've got quite a few cars on the pit lane at the moment still. It is slowly getting more busy as the session moves on. 12 minutes on the clock. We're going to have to think about getting on those race tyres and getting ready for some practice starts. So really watch out for what's going to happen here, because we've done some quick runs. And then in a few moments' time, what we're going to see is a few cars plonk on some tyres, go straight back out onto track from the pit lane. And that is going to be probably the tyre that they start on. Hajar's brushed against another wall once again, and I think they've got a bit of advertisement boarding on their car. It's going to slow them down a little bit and be a bit distracting for the aero components. They are travelling a bit slower now. Or actually, no, it's a little bit more severe. I think Hajar has had an issue with their left rear tyre. So, quote unquote, Isaac Hajar said, "Mate, I am so stupid, I think I'm just dumb." That is the second moment with the barrier now. Yeah, Isaac Hajar really having a difficult time. But luckily, they can get the car back to the pit lane. They've managed to keep it out of the wall in that regard, and they can be good to go. We haven't got a red flag yet, which is interesting. No red flag. Isaac Hajar is in the pit lane. So that will possibly be the end of the session for Isaac Hajar. They won't get a chance to do a practice start. Everybody else is going to be happy that they can stay out on track, but it's still a yellow flag. There is the clear confirmation. But there is a comment that it could be a slippery surface. It's a shame because if you look at the timings right now, the racing bulls are looking pretty strong. Hajar and Lawson, despite not racing here in Formula 1 at all, are really enjoying themselves currently in FP2. Ahead of Alonso, ahead of Albon. Antonelli, another rookie, up in P9 within the top 10, ahead of both Red Bulls. Verstappen and Tsunoda follow each other. Russell in P12. The Mercedes not being as strong as they look to be previously. I think Antonelli had a few moments in FP1. George Russell was in the top 10 for FP1. But it's a bit more complicated right now. Colapinto still having a tough session right now. 20th for the Argentine driver. 2 seconds away. Currently 8/10 away from Esteban Ocon. Lance Stroll just really has struggled to get the lap times going relative to their teammate. But of course they basically didn't get any running in the first session. Track is completely clear now. And no drivers need to worry about it. 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes on the clock to go. And we're just going to see some more lap times being run in. Some simulations done. So Verstappen's had an off at Mirabeau, and they rejoined the circuit. They had to go into reverse gear. He might have just got in the way of Carlos Sainz. Looking at where they came together, were close together at the hairpin. Was complaining about the car not going into reverse gear, so they were sat stationary for a short period. And yeah, you don't want to be stationary in a Formula 1 car with no fans, with little cooling. You've only got airflow cooling. That's pretty devastating if you do sit there too long, and the car can shut itself off if it gets too hot. Now, something to take note of is that swimming pool chicane. We saw Hamilton jump it earlier on. The problem is, if you do jump it and it goes a little bit wrong, then you're gonna hit that wall on the exit and ruin your entire session and everybody else's session. I guarantee in qualifying that's going to happen, and someone is going to get knocked out of the next part of qualifying that shouldn't have been knocked out. It's just the way it goes in Monaco. I think Max Verstappen was possibly on cue to go purple in qualifying in 2024, or was it 2023, and a car went off and they weren't able to compete for pole position. It mustn't have been 2023, it was either 22, not 22 because that was the famous one. It must have been 2024, and I think Verstappen was pretty frustrated. They didn't get knocked out, they just didn't compete for pole position. I don't think we're going to see any improvements on the lap times for any drivers. We're just waiting to see if anybody makes any mistakes and who can get that good data ready for tomorrow's session. Of course, FP3, the final practice session, and qualifying. The qualifying hour, 18 minutes for Q1, it's 15 minutes for Q2 and 12 minutes for Q3. And of course, you lose 5 drivers per session, so you go from 20 drivers to 15 in Q2, and then for Q3, you go to 10 drivers, and that's where it really should be quite straightforward for traffic. I say that, it's still going to be very possible to impede other drivers. Now, 3 minutes now. Hajar still in the pit lane and is very unlikely to come out again. I think that's going to be their day done. They'll get a good night's sleep and they'll be ready to go again tomorrow. Yellow flag infringement for Yuki Tsunoda. Of course, Oliver Behrman, red flag infringement earlier on. So we've got a few drivers who will be spending a bit of time in the steward's room after this session. Instead of having a good night's sleep, I guess. They'll be preparing ready for the most important qualifying session of the year, where you can really decide your race early on Saturday, and you've just got to make sure that you keep it clean in the first sector on lap 1, and after that you just got to focus and don't drop the ball for the entire time and hope that your car stays intact and it doesn't ruin itself. That's another thing that we're looking for. Leclerc tops the times. It's Piastri and Hamilton at the back of the pack. It's Stroll, Ocon and Colapinto In the middle, it's Antonelli, Verstappen and Tsunoda. And we'll go through the rest of the grid in a few moments' time when everybody starts to cross the line. We've got a couple cars out on the softs, most on the mediums, but it's Charles Leclerc who's running the hard tyre. Now, what I do wonder is Charles Leclerc looking to get some practice on the hard tyre? Are they going to start in P1 on that hard tyre and then just slow the pack up? I don't quite know. It could be a strategy. But that would leave you at risk losing all of your hard work to another car that decides to go into the pit lane on the first 2 laps. The strategy kind of theory is that if you pit on the first 2 laps, you avoid any of the shenanigans. When all the cars are bunched up together travelling slowly, you can get a severe undercut and you can go to the end of the race on that tyre. It's happened in the past, it will probably happen again. However, we will see the 2-stop strategy come into play this weekend. It is a mandatory 2-stop strategy set by Pirelli to create some more strategy variety. And it's going to be a little bit more complicated. I really don't quite know what to expect. I'm going to try and do some more research ready for tomorrow so we can understand it a little bit better. But never been done before, so it is going to be complicated. It is going to be, I'm sure, very entertaining. We're going to see the pit crews tested more than ever. Of course, as they have to mandatory stop the cars, so they are forced to do that. 2 stops for the pit crews could go horribly wrong. Will the cars still go for the early pit stop at the end and then go for a late pit stop later on? Will they just stay out and do the tyres life, or will they go for pit stops at the very end of the session and try to make the most of it? Well, it really depends where you are out on track. It really depends on where you qualify. And to qualify well, you need to get some good data and good laps in. And we have now finished the session of practice 2, where the laps are in, and we get ready for Saturday. 5 seconds on the clock, and we will see a few cars go across the line. Everybody is out on track, except from Isaac Hadjar. That's 19 cars currently making up the order. And we see the first car taking the flag is Carlos Sainz. Earlier on, it was Alex Albon. So both Williams setting their lap times pretty early on, I guess, if you could consider it the final few minutes of the session, as everybody else will go through. And we're going to see a practice start for Charles Leclerc on the hard tyre. We're going to see practice starts for Piastri, for Lawson, for Bortoletto and Behrman, also on that soft tyre. It's actually going to be a hard tyre for Hulkenberg as well. Everyone else will do a practice start on the medium tyre. We've got some really interesting strategies coming up here. I'm not entirely sure what to expect, but I cannot wait, that is for sure. I'm very excited to see how this one goes. Not only on Saturday, but also on Sunday. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind race that we haven't experienced. Whether it's for good or for worse with this mandatory strategy stop, I don't know. But we've got to keep an open mind, and I'm sure we can have a brilliant, brilliant race. Now, the session is done. Looking at who we think is going to go fastest through the live chat. 40% McLaren, Ferrari 60%. Ferrari are expected to take victory here. Well, we've currently got pretty much exactly what we had last year with Leclerc winning the Grand Prix, Piastri P2, it was Carlos Sainz who's now got Hamilton in the car in P3, and then it was Lando Norris. So we've actually got exactly the same order, and we're expected quite possibly to have that again. Charles Leclerc setting an 11.355, just under half a tenth away from Oscar Piastri in P2. It's Lewis Hamilton who's not too far away, a tenth away from his teammate in P3. It's Lando Norris in P4. Lawson, a brilliant lap for their first time in Monaco into P5, and Hadjar as well, P6, but having 2 moments throughout this session, and of course their final moment has put them out of the running to do any practice starts. They spend the rest of their session, the last few minutes, in the pit lane. It's Fernando Alonso in P7. It's Alex Albon being the lead Williams in P8. Antonelli in P9 being the lead Mercedes as George Russell's having another tricky weekend. Verstappen and Tsunoda close together on track for the first time in a while. That's good to see for Tsunoda, but not good to see for Verstappen, as we were hoping to see them be competitive. They were in the top lot in FP1 earlier on, so they can definitely go quickly. It's Russell in P12, it's Carlos Sainz in P13, we've got Bortoletto ahead of Hülkenberg. They're split by Behrman in the middle, then it's Gasly in P17, it's Lance Stroll, it's Esteban Ocon, and it's Colapinto, who is struggling this time around in Monaco, their second Grand Prix at one of the most difficult tracks, and I say their second Grand Prix with Alpine, of course. That has been the session. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for FP3 and qualifying. That is going to be absolutely epic. I cannot wait to see it. Yeah, I don't know what to say. FP3, come and get warmed up with us, ready for qualifying later on in the evening. It's going to be a spectacular show. I can't wait. We'll get some more research done, ready for the stream. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. 17 viewers live, 200 views overall. Absolutely brilliant weekend so far. Let's keep up the good momentum. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.